Maybe if you were half the woman I wanted, I wouldn't have to sneak out every night. Those were the bitter words he hissed whenever she questioned his late-night trips to the kitchen, mocking her, belittling her, making her feel like a stranger in her own home. For months, he slipped out of bed at exactly 2 a.m. For months, she lay awake, wondering what secret was worth more than their marriage. For months, she told herself she was imagining things, until the night she finally gathered the courage to follow him. And what she found in that kitchen, what she heard, what she saw wasn't anything she could have prepared her heart for. Sometimes the truth doesn't whisper, it shatters. This is the story of a wife who walked into the dark to discover what daylight had been hiding. And today, it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please, subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten, and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we're not just telling stories, we're keeping hope alive. Emily woke up again to the faint sound of footsteps slipping out of the bedroom. Soft, careful, practiced. She didn't need to check the clock. She already knew it was 2 a.m. The red numbers flashed across the room anyway, almost mocking her with their accuracy. She lay still, eyes open in the dark, listening to the rhythm she had come to know too well. Sheets shifting, floorboard creaking, the quiet click of the bedroom door. Every night the same path, the same hour, the same silence afterward. She tried to breathe slow, as if maybe the calm would bring back sleep. But her mind didn't slow. It pressed harder, louder. Where is he going? Why again? Why every night? Why won't he just tell me? She whispered his name once, just to see if he would turn around. Michael? Nothing. Only the soft sound of him heading toward the kitchen, again. She rolled to her back and stared at the ceiling. He had brushed her off earlier when she asked why he always left the bed. Maybe if you were half the woman I wanted, I wouldn't have to sneak out every night, he hissed, his breath warm with irritation. Try asking yourself what you're doing wrong instead of asking where I'm going. Those words echoed now, louder in the dark than they had in the moment, and the hurt of them crawled up her throat. She blinked fast, willing her eyes not to burn. She knew better than to cry over his anger. Crying only gave him something to call her sensitive about the next day. Still, the question dug at her. What kind of husband said something like that to his wife? When she woke later that morning, his side of the bed was cold. She found him in the kitchen drinking coffee like the night had been nothing unusual. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It hadn't in months. You're quiet, she said, hoping maybe simple conversation could soften the tension that had been living between them. You're imagining things, he replied, not looking up from his phone. I'm not, she said quietly. He sighed as if exhausted by her. Emily, can we not do this today? She opened her mouth to answer, but the front door swung open before she could speak. Grace walked in without knocking, as usual. Her presence filled the room quickly, warm and loud in a way that made Emily feel both comforted and overshadowed at the same time. Morning, Grace sang, dropping her purse on the counter. I brought muffins, blueberry, your favourite. Emily forced a smile. Thanks. You didn't have to. I wanted to, Grace said. Her gaze flicked to Michael for just a second. Too fast, too light. But Emily caught it. Or thought she caught it. She wasn't sure anymore which instincts were real and which were her fears talking. Grace leaned in close, lowering her voice.
You look tired. Is he still doing that thing at night?
Emily's breath hitched.
Yeah, still going to the kitchen. Maybe just let him breathe,
Grace whispered, giving her a soft, almost sisterly smile.
Some men go through weird phases. Don't overthink it.
Emily nodded, though something about Grace's tone felt too sweet, too careful, like she was laying balm over a wound she knew the depth of before Emily did. Michael set his cup down. Can we stop talking about me like I'm not standing here? Grace laughed lightly.
Relax. I'm just trying to help.
Help by minding your business, he muttered. Emily's stomach tightened. His coldness toward her had started months ago, but toward Grace? That was new, confusing, unsettling. Grace's phone buzzed. She snatched it off the counter so fast Emily barely saw the screen. She stepped away, turning her back as she read the message. Emily watched her shoulders tense, then relax, as if smoothing herself back into the soft, friendly version of Grace she always showed. Michael's phone buzzed too. He grabbed it, typed in a passcode she didn't recognize, and then angled the screen away from her. New code? She asked. It's work, he said flatly. Daniel's been on me all week. Emily walked past him to grab a muffin, but her eyes caught on something on his screen before he locked it. A message thread. The name at the top read only G. She didn't say anything. She wasn't sure why she hesitated. Maybe because confronting him usually ended with her being labeled insecure. Maybe because she didn't trust her own judgment anymore. Maybe because she didn't want the truth to be worse than her fear. Grace came back into the kitchen, smiling too brightly. So, who wants to help me pick out paint colours this afternoon? Michael shook his head. I have a meeting. You always have a meeting, Grace teased. Her tone was light, but something behind it felt pointed. Emily swallowed. I can help. Great, Grace said, squeezing her arm before leaving almost as quickly as she arrived. I'll text you. When the door closed behind her, Michael finally looked at Emily. Really looked. His eyes were sharp, colder than she remembered them ever being in the early years of their marriage. Stop letting her fill your head, he said. What do you mean? She gets ideas. Don't listen. What ideas? He didn't answer. He just walked away. Later that afternoon, Emily found herself replaying that moment again and again. Grace hiding her phone, Michael hiding his, both of them tense around each other. Or was she imagining that too? She tried calling Michael around 5. No answer. Then again at 6. Still nothing. When he walked through the door close to 9, his face was drawn and tired, irritation simmering beneath his voice. Busy day? She asked gently. Every day is busy, he said. Why are you calling me so much? I'm working. I was worried. There's nothing to worry about. But you weren't answering. Emily, stop, he snapped. Not every call needs a response. I'm not on a leash. Her face warmed from embarrassment. I didn't mean it like that. Well, that's how it feels. She wanted to defend herself, but her voice didn't come. It was like he reached into the argument before it even started and stole the air right out of it. He walked past her to the shower. She tried to breathe steady, to tell herself it didn't mean anything. Couples fought. People changed under stress. He was under a lot lately. Maybe Grace was right. Maybe Emily really was overthinking. But then later, when she was putting away laundry, she found Michael's phone on the bed, screen unlocked. She didn't mean to look. She didn't. But her hand hovered over the screen anyway. His message app was open. The locked thread labelled G sat at the top. No preview, no details. Her heart thudded. G. Greg. He was Grace's boyfriend. Michael had mentioned him only a handful of times. Why would Michael be texting him enough to lock the thread? She hovered her finger over the chat. She tried to open it. It immediately asked for a second passcode. She stepped away from the phone like it burned her. When Michael came into the room a few minutes later, he grabbed his phone without looking at her. "Daniel called," he said. "Company stuff."
Everything okay? Depends on what you call okay. His voice was low. If things go bad, I'll handle it. Don't ask questions. Michael, I said don't. He walked out again. He was doing that more now, leaving every room she entered, carrying silence like a wall she wasn't allowed through. The next evening she met Grace for coffee. Grace listened to everything with soft, wide eyes, nodding at all the right moments.
You're stretching yourself thin,"
she said.
"Just let the man breathe. Don't push him. He hates feeling cornered." "I just want him to talk to me." "I know,"
Grace murmured, squeezing her hand.
"but men like him don't open up when they're watched too closely. Give it time."
Emily tried to believe her. She tried so hard. But later that night, when she walked into the guest room to look for a missing sweater, she saw Grace on the phone. Grace's voice dropped fast the moment she noticed Emily.
"Who are you talking to?"
Emily asked. Grace smiled too quickly.
"No one important. Just someone from work."
But she kept the phone flipped screen down until Emily left the room. That night, when Michael slipped out of bed again at exactly 2 a.m., Emily sat up. She didn't follow, not yet. She listened. He walked down the stairs. The soft hum of the fridge opened. Then nothing. Dead silence. 10 minutes of it. 15. 20. Her chest tightened. The next night it happened again, and the next. Emily's thoughts spun faster each time. The secret was there, in the kitchen, in the silence, somewhere in those minutes she couldn't see. By the end of the week, she couldn't take it anymore. At exactly 1:58 a.m., she lay awake, watching the minutes crawl by, her pulse in her throat. When Michael finally shifted beside her, she stayed perfectly still, breathing steady, pretending to sleep. She felt him slip out of bed, felt the mattress lift, heard the soft pad of his feet across the bedroom floor. The door clicked shut. She waited 3 seconds, maybe 5. Then she got up. Her heart thudded hard as she followed him down the hallway, each step soft, controlled, careful. She reached the stairs and paused, holding her breath. She heard his voice, low, whispering. She took one more step, then another. The kitchen light glowed faintly under the doorway, illuminating the bottom stair. She moved slowly, trying not to make the wood creak. His voice became clearer. He wasn't alone. He was whispering to someone. Her breath caught as she reached the last step and leaned closer, her hand trembling lightly on the railing. She pressed herself against the wall, hidden by the shadows, and strained to hear. Michael's voice, soft, gentle, almost tender. And then, another voice answered him. A woman's voice, soft, warm, familiar. Emily felt the floor tilt under her feet. She couldn't see them yet. She couldn't see anything but light and shadows. But the sound of that voice tugged at something deep in her memory. She held her breath, frozen in place, scared to hear more but unable to step away. And the woman on the phone spoke again. And Emily's heart stumbled hard in her chest. Emily leaned closer to the doorway, hardly breathing. afraid that even the sound of her heartbeat might give her away. The woman's voice drifting through the kitchen hit something sharp inside her chest. She knew it. She was sure she knew it, but her mind refused to name it yet. It felt impossible, wrong, like hearing a familiar song in a nightmare. Michael's voice dropped to a whisper.
I can't stay long. She's asleep.
Emily's hand pressed to her mouth, as if a physical touch could hold her together. She leaned enough to see his silhouette inside the kitchen, his back toward her, phone held to his ear. His shoulders weren't tight like they always were around her. He looked relaxed, comfortable, intimate. The woman's voice floated through the speaker again, clearer this time, like a knife cutting through fog.
I miss your hands on me.
Emily's knees wobbled. The railing steadied her, but even the wood felt unsteady under her grip. Her pulse pounded so hard she feared Michael could hear it from where he stood. Her mind scrambled for explanations. Maybe he was talking to someone else. Maybe she was making it up. Maybe... But the voice came again, soft and honey-slick. Something in it cracked open a memory. 100 memories. Laughing over coffee, late-night talks, childhood secrets. A voice that had comforted her after heartbreak. A voice she trusted. Emily felt the cold truth crawling up her spine before the voice even finished speaking.
Is she asleep?
The woman asked. Emily's eyes widened. Her throat tightened. Her stomach sank. It was Grace. It was her sister. Her mouth fell open, a soundless shock breaking inside her. She couldn't move. She couldn't think. She could only stare at Michael's back and listen to the betrayal slip through the air like poison. Michael lifted his head slightly at the sound of a faint floorboard creak behind Emily. It was tiny, barely audible, but he heard it. He turned. His eyes landed on her standing in the dim glow of the stairwell, her face pale, her body trembling. For a split second, his expression was pure shock. Then something colder slid in, a flicker of fear, then calculation. He didn't speak, he didn't move. He just stared at her, stunned and guilty and exposed all at once. The phone was still pressed to his ear, and through the small device, Grace's voice came again, sharp with curiosity, almost playful.
Michael? Did she hear you?
And the whole world shattered. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you? Emily didn't remember climbing the stairs. She didn't remember closing the bedroom door or sitting on the edge of the bed. All she remembered was Grace's voice echoing through her bones. The voice that had tucked her hair behind her ears when she cried as a child. The voice that stood next to her on her wedding day. The voice that said she loved her. Now that same voice whispered to her husband at 2 a.m. Michael walked into the room minutes later, calm in a way that felt wrong, like he had practiced wearing that expression for years. He shut the door behind him and leaned against it, arms crossed, breathing steady. Emily, he said softly, before you start spinning this into something it's not, just breathe, okay? Her throat felt raw.
I heard her.
You think you heard her. His voice stayed level, smooth. People sound different on speakerphone. She was talking about a surprise for you. That's all. She stared at him, stunned.
A surprise? She said she missed your hands on her.
He didn't flinch. You misheard.
Michael, I know my sister's voice.
You think you do, he said, stepping closer. But you're stressed. You haven't been sleeping. Your mind is playing tricks on you. It happens.
He said it so gently she almost wanted to believe him, but something inside her clenched hard.
"Don't do that to me," she whispered. "Don't tell me what I heard."
He sighed, frustrated now. "Emily, you're being dramatic. Grace and I were planning something nice for you. You ruined it." She blinked slowly, trying to understand the shape of his lie. What kind of surprise? He hesitated for one tiny, revealing second. "A birthday thing."
"My birthday's 5 months away."
His jaw tightened. "Well, it was something. Does it matter? You eavesdropped, you twisted it, and now you're accusing me of something disgusting." She swallowed hard.
"Why was she calling at 2 a.m.?
"Maybe because she knew you'd react like this," he snapped. "You always jumped the worst." "I didn't jump, Michael. I followed you." "You shouldn't have." His eyes sharpened. "And I won't tolerate this paranoia anymore." The word paranoia hit her like a shove. He was trying to make her doubt her own senses, her own ears, her own reality. She opened her mouth to speak, but he was already walking away, already shutting the conversation down with the same coldness he'd been hiding behind for months. "Go to bed," he said. "We'll talk when you're calm." But she lay awake the rest of the night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the echo of Grace's voice crack each memory she held. The next morning she drove to Grace's house before she could talk herself out of it. When Grace opened the door, she wrapped Emily in a hug so fast and so tight, it felt staged.
"Em, what's wrong? You look pale."
Emily pulled away, heart pounding.
"I heard you last night."
Grace blinked.
"Heard me what?"
"On the phone, with Michael." Grace froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough for Emily to see it, but then her face broke into a horrified frown.
"What? Emily, no! Oh my God, no! Is that what you think?"
"He said you were planning something for me." Grace nodded quickly.
Yes, that's exactly what we were doing. He told me you got upset. Emily, sweetie, he was trying to help me figure out something special for you. I swear."
Emily stared at her sister, searching her eyes for something real.
"Why would you talk about his hands on you?"
Grace's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again.
"Emily, I didn't say anything like that. Why would I ever say that? That's insane."
"It's what I heard." Grace put a hand over her heart.
"You know me. You know I would never cross that line with your husband. Never."
Emily wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe her so badly it hurt. But something about the way Grace's eyes flicked downward, the way her voice softened at the edges, the way she kept reaching for her hand, it all felt too carefully arranged. "You're tired," Grace said gently. "Michael said you haven't been sleeping. Stress does things to people." Emily flinched. The same word Michael had used. Paranoia, stress, imagining things. The script felt too coordinated. "I'm not imagining my own sister's voice," she whispered. Grace's warm expression cracked for just a second, quick, sharp, irritated, then softened again. "Emily, please. Don't let your marriage fall apart over something that didn't happen." Emily pulled her hand back. "I don't trust this." Grace stepped closer. "You don't trust me." Emily didn't answer. She didn't have to. Grace's face went tight. "I would never hurt you," she said quietly. "Ever." But Emily heard something under the words. Not love, not reassurance. Warning. Later that day, Emily went to Michael's office. She didn't tell him she was coming. She wanted to see something real, unfiltered. But when she arrived, Daniel was the one who stepped out of the hallway, his tie loose, his eyes tired. "Emily," he said softly, I didn't expect to see you here. I need to talk to Michael. Daniel hesitated. He's not here. He left this morning. Daniel rubbed his face. He's been leaving a lot, and not for work. Her chest tightened. What does that mean? Daniel looked around the hallway, making sure no one could hear. The company is missing funds. A lot of funds. And Michael's been acting desperate, meeting with people he shouldn't, making promises he can't keep. The world tilted. Why didn't he tell me? Daniel's voice softened. Maybe he didn't want you to worry. Or maybe he didn't want her to know.
Just keep your eyes open, Daniel added, and be careful. When she returned home, Linda was already waiting inside, sitting on the couch with the confidence of someone who believed the house belonged to her. You need to stop making scenes, Linda said without greeting her. Michael told me you're accusing him of terrible things. Emily bristled. I'm not accusing him, I heard something. You heard what you wanted to hear, Linda said. Grace told me everything. You embarrassed yourself. Emily's jaw clenched. Grace told you? Of course she did. She cares about this family. And she told me she feels responsible for your behavior. Emily laughed under her breath. Responsible? Linda leaned forward. You need to stay quiet, Emily. For the sake of the family image. For Michael's reputation. He doesn't need a wife who turns private matters into gossip. Emily stared at her. They're the ones doing something wrong, not me. Linda's expression hardened. Even if they were, you keep it behind closed doors. That is what respectable women do. Emily felt the heat behind her eyes, but refused to let it spill. Linda stood, patted her shoulder as if she were a child having a tantrum, and left without another word. That evening, Emily searched through the house. She didn't know what she was looking for, but she needed something, anything that told her she wasn't losing her mind. In Michael's office drawer, she found a credit card she didn't recognize. It had her last name, but not her signature. Charges she had never made. Her pulse raced. Then she found something else. A text notification on Michael's tablet. A preview message from Grace. Tonight? Same time? Her stomach dropped. She opened the message thread with shaking hands. Grace had been at the house on nights Emily thought she was asleep. Her breath hitched as the newest message appeared at the top, sent just minutes earlier. 2 a.m., like always. Bring the key. The room spun. Her fingers tingled. She sank into the chair, the tablet trembling in her lap. A key. Grace had a key to her house. Her sister had been inside her home, walking her floors, moving around her bedroom, standing near her husband, and Emily never knew. She pressed her hands to her face and let herself feel the weight of the moment, the weight of the truth settling somewhere deep and cold inside her. Something darker than an affair was happening, something designed, something planned. She stood slowly and walked downstairs, trying to breathe. She stopped in the kitchen, leaning on the counter for support. That was when she noticed it. A phone hidden behind the toaster, not Michael's regular phone. A second one. Her heart pounded. Emily picked up the second phone with shaking fingers. It felt heavier than it should, like the weight of it carried everything she was afraid to see. She pressed the power button. The screen lit up with a passcode page, but it wasn't locked all the way. A notification banner slid across the top. New voice memo from G. Her breath stopped. She swiped down. More notifications appeared. Dozens. All from the voice memo app. All from the same contact. G. Her stomach twisted. She entered the most obvious code she could think of. Her birthday. It opened instantly.
Her hands trembled as the menus loaded. There were too many recordings, too many files, all recent, all long. She pressed play on the first one before she could talk herself out of it. Michael's voice filled the kitchen. I can't keep dealing with her questions. She's watching everything I do. Grace answered with a low whisper.
Then push her. Make her look unstable. She always doubts herself. It won't take much.
Emily's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed the counter, digging her fingers into the edge as the memo continued to play. Michael sighed in frustration on the recording. If she'd stop asking where I go at night, this would be easier. You're the one who chose her, Grace said. Not me. I told you she'd fall apart as soon as things got hard. Maybe, Michael muttered, but she was useful at the beginning. Useful. The word made Emily's eyes sting. She paused the recording as the world blurred around her. She tried to breathe, but every inhale felt tight and sharp, like her lungs didn't know how to handle air anymore. She clicked another memo. Grace's voice, soft but cold. Make her think she's imagining things. You're good at that. Let her drown in her doubts. Then take everything. Michael answered, We have to be careful. If she figures out anything, she won't, Grace cut in. She trusts me. Emily's heart cracked loud enough she swore she could hear it echo. She pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the tremble beneath her palm. She didn't want to listen anymore, but her finger moved anyway, opening another memo. Michael's voice. What if she finds out about the money?
Then she'll look even more unstable,
Grace said.
No one will believe a woman drowning in debt she didn't know she had.
Michael groaned.
I should have never put those charges in her name. It's fine,
Grace whispered.
Once she's gone, everything is clean.
Emily forced herself to stop the recording. Her hands were shaking too badly. She pressed the phone against her forehead, feeling the cold metal soothe her burning skin. She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't paranoid. She wasn't spiraling. They were doing it on purpose. They were planning it. Together. Two people she trusted. One bound by vows. One bound by blood. Her legs finally gave out. She slid down the cabinet until she was sitting on the kitchen floor, her knees drawn up, the phone still glowing in her hand. She didn't know how long she stayed like that before she heard the front door open. Heavy footsteps entered the house. Michael's keys dropped onto the table with his usual careless flick. Emily? He called out. Why are the lights still on? She scrambled to her feet, stuffing the second phone behind a stack of cookbooks on the counter, just as Michael walked into the kitchen. His eyes landed on her, then narrowed slightly. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said. She swallowed, keeping her voice steady. Where were you? Working. She held his stare. He didn't blink. He didn't shift. He wore the lie like a suit he'd worn 1,000 times. I called the office, she said. Daniel said you weren't there. Michael's jaw tightened. Daniel needs to learn to mind his own business. That's not an answer. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're doing it again.
Doing what?
Acting emotional, seeing things that aren't there. His eyes flicked around the kitchen for a moment, scanning the counters. Did you go through my stuff?
No.
Emily. His voice deepened, a warning hiding behind the syllables. If you keep letting your mind run wild, you're going to regret it. A month ago, that tone would have scared her. But now, with the truth ringing in her ears, it only made her sick. Michael exhaled roughly, like he was the one exhausted by her. I'm going to bed. You should take something. Calm down. He walked out without waiting for her reply. Emily stayed frozen. She didn't trust her legs to move again. After a moment, she pulled the second phone back out and tucked it into her robe pocket. She needed to hear the last memo, the most recent one, the one from just hours earlier. She climbed the stairs quietly, listening for Michael's footsteps. He shut the bedroom door behind him, not noticing she didn't follow. Emily slipped into the guest room, locked the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. The room smelled faintly of Grace's perfume. She hated that she recognized it. With a deep breath, she opened the last voice memo. Grace's voice slid into the room like ice. "Once she's out of the house, everything is ours." Emily's chest tightened until she could barely breathe. Her fingers curled around the phone. Her pulse hammered in her ears, and in a voice so soft it barely left her throat, she whispered the truth she finally understood.
They want me gone.
Emily knew something was coming the moment Michael walked into the living room with that careful expression he used when he wanted to look calm, controlled, reasonable. She had seen it before. He used it with clients he needed to manipulate. He used it with Linda when he wanted her approval. He had never used it on his own wife. Not until now. "Emily," he said softly, "we need to talk." Her chest tightened. She stood straighter, bracing herself. "About what?" He took a seat, folding his hands like a therapist about to deliver a diagnosis. "I spoke with someone today, a professional." Her heart dropped. "A professional?" He nodded. "A mental health specialist. I told them about your episodes." She stared at him. "What episodes?" "The paranoia," he said gently. "The accusations. The sleeplessness. The way you've been acting." Her mouth went dry.
"Michael, I'm not paranoid. I found proof."
He sighed. "This is exactly what I mean."
"I found voice memos. I heard you and Grace."
He lifted a hand. "Emily, stop. Please. You're not well. You're confused. You're hurting. And instead of asking for help, you're inventing stories." She felt her pulse pound in her throat.
"I'm not inventing anything."
"You are." He leaned forward, voice soft and full of forced concern. "And we need to address it before it gets worse." She took a step back.
"What did you do?"
Michael exhaled slowly, as if the conversation exhausted him. "I filed a wellness complaint." Her blood ran cold.
"A what?"
"It's not permanent," he said quickly. "It's just a temporary safety measure. The specialist agreed that you need space, rest, and evaluation. It's only for a few days." Emily shook her head, heart racing.
"You're forcing me out of my own house."
"I'm protecting you," he said calmly. "And myself." She blinked, stunned. "Protecting yourself from what?" "From unpredictable behavior." Unpredictable behavior. The phrase sliced through her. It wasn't concern, it was strategy. It was the lie he needed to push her out so she couldn't expose him.
"You can't do this,"
she whispered. "I already did." Her knees wobbled. Her breath stuttered.
"Where am I supposed to go?"
Before he could answer, the front door opened. Grace stepped inside, carrying a grocery bag as if this were her house too.
"Is everything okay?"
Grace asked, eyes flicking between them. Michael didn't hesitate. "She needs a few days away, for her health." Grace's eyebrows lifted with careful surprise.
"Oh no. Emily, what happened?"
Emily stared at her sister, wanting to scream, wanting to tell everything. But Grace was already stepping closer, wrapping her in fake warmth.
"You can stay with me,"
Grace said softly.
"as long as you need."
Michael nodded in agreement. "That's best." Emily looked between them. Michael's cold control, Grace's soft concern. Both masks, both lies. But she had no choice. She packed a single bag because her hands were shaking too hard to grab more. Michael's eyes followed her every move. Grace waited at the door with a patient smile. When Emily stepped outside, the air felt cold and sharp. Not freeing, not fresh, just wrong. Grace drove them to her house, humming lightly, tapping her fingers on the steering wheel like it was just another afternoon. Emily stared out the window, feeling smaller with every mile. Once inside, Grace wrapped an arm around her. "You can stay in the guest room. I'll make tea." Emily sat on the couch, numb, hands folded tightly in her lap. She could hear Grace in the kitchen, opening cabinets, boiling water, humming the way she did when she was pleased with herself. When Grace returned, she handed Emily a mug. "You're safe here. You don't have to worry about anything." Emily took the cup but didn't drink.
"You know you can talk to me,"
Grace said softly, sitting beside her.
"I want to help."
Emily looked at her sister's face and wondered how long she'd been wearing that mask. Maybe her entire life. Later that night, Emily tried to sleep in the guest room, but her mind raced too fast. Around midnight, she got up to get water. As she reached the top of the stairs, she heard Grace's voice. She froze. Grace was on the phone, whispering.
"She's breaking,"
Grace murmured.
"She won't fight."
A pause. Soft laughter.
"Yes, it's working. She looks exhausted."
Another pause.
"She won't last long."
Emily pressed a hand to her mouth, squeezing her eyes shut. She had imagined Michael's gaslighting. She had imagined Linda's cutting remarks. But this, hearing Grace's voice dripping with satisfaction, was worse than all of it. Emily stepped back silently, heart pounding, then returned to the guest room. She lay awake until morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling betrayal sink deeper into her bones. The next day, she went to meet Daniel. He looked nervous when she approached, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid someone might be watching. "Daniel," she said quietly, "please, I need the truth." He hesitated. "Emily, this isn't safe." "I don't care." Daniel exhaled hard. "Michael's been stealing money from the company for over a year. He forged signatures, including yours, to open accounts. And that's not all. He put loans in your name, debt in your name, thousands." The ground tilted under her. "Why?" "To protect himself," Daniel said. "If anyone came after him, he wanted someone else to blame. And you were the easiest person to use." Emily felt sick. Her voice shook. "Does Grace know?" Daniel hesitated. "She knows enough." Emily swallowed, heart pounding. "I need to see the records." Daniel slid a folder across the table. "I shouldn't give you this, but you deserve to know what's being done to you." She opened it with trembling hands. Her forged signature stared back at her from page after page. Transactions she never approved, accounts she never touched. Her own name used as a weapon. When she returned to Grace's house, her mind was spinning. She stepped quietly into the guest room and closed the door behind her. She needed a moment, a plan, air. Instead, she found another lie. She opened the closet to hang her jacket and froze. Inside a small box on the top shelf were letters, dozens of them. She pulled one out, Michael's handwriting. Her heart hammered as she read. "Grace, I can't stop thinking about you. This has gone on too long. She's holding me back. I wish you were here instead."
Emily felt her throat close. She opened another. Grace, she believes everything. Just a little longer. Another. Grace,
I should have chosen you. I don't know why I didn't. Her hands trembled as she dropped the letters onto the carpet. On the floor beside them was a copy of her own signature, perfectly forged. And next to that, a spare key to her house. She covered her mouth as tears finally broke free. Grace had been inside. Grace had been watching. Grace had been planning long before Emily ever knew. She sat on the floor, surrounded by the truth, shaking, choking on disbelief. Then one more letter slipped from the stack. This one was older, faded, a different tone. Grace, I don't know if she'll fall for me, but if she does, you'll know she never deserved me. You're the only one who understands. Emily read it twice, 3 times. Grace wasn't the other woman. Grace had been the first woman, the one before Emily, the one Michael had loved. The one who introduced Emily to him like a test. The one he wasn't supposed to choose. But he did. Grace never forgave her. Emily's breathing hitched as the realization sank in. Every warm smile, every sisterly hug, every "I'm here for you" was a seed Grace planted with a purpose. To watch Emily fall, to wait for the right moment, to take everything back. Her hands shook so hard the letter slipped from her fingers, but it wasn't over. It wasn't close to over. She opened Grace's bedside drawer, desperate for answers, desperate for anything that made sense. What she found wasn't sense. It was war. A small flash drive, label Home. She plugged it into her laptop, heart pounding. Audio files filled the screen. Recordings. She clicked the first one. Linda's voice, sharp, cold. She needs to go, Michael. She's ruining everything. Grace's reply was smooth. Don't worry. I'll handle her. This family deserves its proper form again. Proper form. Emily forced her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. She played another recording. Michael. I'll make her think it's her idea. Grace. Good. Once she's out, everything falls back into place. Her vision blurred. She sat frozen, gripping the edge of the table as if the room might collapse under her. They weren't just cheating. They weren't just lying. They were rebuilding the life they had before her, a life where Emily never existed. Emily closed the laptop slowly, her hands trembling so hard she had to grip the edges of the desk just to steady herself. She could barely breathe. Her chest felt tight, bruised from the inside. The recordings kept replaying in her mind, looping like a cruel chant she couldn't silence. Once she's out, everything falls into place. Restore the family to its proper form. Proper form meant without her. It meant Grace and Michael. It meant she had trapped herself inside the one story she was never meant to be part of. Emily stood up, her body weightless and heavy at the same time. She grabbed her bag, stuffed the flash drive inside, and slipped quietly out of the guest room. She didn't care if Grace heard her leave. She didn't care about anything except getting away before she shattered in front of someone who would enjoy it. The night air outside was cold, sharp enough to sting her skin, but it grounded her. She drove without thinking, every turn automatic, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She needed space to think. She needed distance to breathe. But more than anything, she needed answers, not recordings, not letters, not secrets hidden in drawers, real answers. Answers she could confront face to face. And there was only one place to get them. Her house. Her house. The place she had paid for,
cleaned, loved, filled with memories that now burned.
By the time she pulled into her driveway, the street was silent. Every window in the house was dark except one, the faint light bleeding from the kitchen window. A warm glow at 2 a.m., a sight she knew too well. Her breath caught. 2 a.m., of course. Her legs moved before her mind did. She unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside, the familiar hum of the refrigerator greeting her like an old ghost. The house felt different, not like a home at all, more like a stage she had stumbled onto, too late to play her part. She moved through the hallway slowly, every step careful, silent, heavy. When she reached the edge of the living room, she heard movement, soft, calm, not rushed. The sound of someone who belonged there. Emily stepped closer. The kitchen light spilled across the hardwood floor, warm and steady. She rounded the corner, heart pounding so loud she felt it in her throat. And then she froze. Grace was in her kitchen. Grace, in Michael's t-shirt, barefoot. Comfortable, at home. Grace stood by the counter, holding Michael's phone, her husband's phone, in her hand. She looked up the moment she sensed someone in the doorway. Their eyes met. Grace didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She didn't look guilty. She smiled, slow, calm, confident, like she had been waiting. "You were never supposed to follow him," Grace said softly. Her voice curled around the room like silk dipped in poison. "This was my home first." Michael froze in the doorway like he had walked straight into a nightmare he didn't recognize. His eyes jumped from Grace to Emily, then to the phone in Grace's hand, then back to Emily. He looked confused for only a second, then scared, then angry. "Emily," he said slowly, "what are you doing here?" Emily didn't step back. She didn't lower her chin. She didn't hide the flash drive, the second phone, or the folder she had tucked under her arm. For the first time in months, her fear had gone quiet. A new feeling stood in its place. Truth. "I came home," she said simply. Michael's jaw tightened. "You were told to stay with your sister." "My sister," Emily said, her eyes flicking toward Grace. "Forgot to mention she lives here more than I do." Grace smirked, turning Michael's phone over in her hand like she was checking for scratches. "Don't look at me like that, Em. It was only a matter of time." Michael stepped fully into the kitchen now, moving between them as if he could block the situation with his body. "Grace, stop." Grace laughed. "Why? She already knows." Emily opened the folder and let the papers spill across the kitchen island. Signatures, bank statements, loan agreements, all with her name forged. Michael's face drained of colour. "What is this?" he asked, though the tremor in his voice showed he already knew. "Evidence," Emily said softly. "Everything you thought I would never find." Grace rolled her eyes. "Michael, she dug around. She found scraps. Nothing that matters." Emily lifted the second phone and placed it on the counter with a quiet, final tap. "There's more." Michael inhaled sharply. "Where did you get that?" "You hid it in our kitchen," Emily said. "Behind the toaster. Not the most creative spot, but I guess you thought I'd never look." Grace tried to snatch the phone, but Emily pulled it back. "No," Emily said, voice firm. "You don't get to touch anything anymore." Grace's expression shifted, just a flicker, but enough for Emily to see the panic start. Then Grace smoothed her hair, straightened her shoulders, and forced a calm smile. "It doesn't matter," she said. "Michael will explain it. He always does." For a long second, Michael didn't say anything. He stared at Grace like he didn't recognize her. Then he looked at Emily, and something inside him seemed to collapse. "Emily, let me explain," he said quietly. Grace snapped her head toward him. "Explain what?" Michael didn't look at her. "Everything." Grace's laughter cracked like glass. "You're joking. You're actually going to stand there and act like you weren't in this with me." Emily placed the flash drive on the counter next. "This one has recordings," she said. "Linda and Grace planning everything. And some of you, too." Michael's knees buckled slightly. He steadied himself against the counter. Grace didn't blink. "Emily, even if you think you have something—" "I do," Emily said. She took a breath and pulled out one last paper from the folder, a faded document with Michael's signature. He froze when he saw it. "No," he whispered. "You weren't supposed to find that." Emily held it up between two fingers. "Your confession. You made it for the company archives in case you ever got caught. Daniel helped me locate it." Grace's mouth fell open. She whipped toward Michael. "You did what?" Michael looked sick. "Grace, stop yelling." "He signed a confession?" Grace screeched. "Why would you do that? Why would you put something like that on record?" "Because he was scared," Emily answered. "Because he never trusted you." Grace turned her full glare on Emily. "You don't know anything." Emily met her stare without flinching. "I know enough." She slid the confession across the counter toward Michael. "Fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, forgery. You listed everything on here. Every crime, every detail." Michael pressed both hands into the island, breathing raggedly. "Emily, please." "You used my name for years," she said. "You lied to me. You used me. And you let Grace help you destroy our marriage just so you could return to whatever version of your past you two romanticized." Grace scoffed. "He didn't let me. I led. You think Michael could pull any of this off on his own?" Michael's eyes darted to her, wounded and defensive. "Grace, don't. Oh, please," Grace snapped. "She already knows everything. Stop pretending you were some mastermind. You followed my plan from the beginning." Emily studied them. The cracks, the panic, the shared guilt, the unraveling. Grace crossed her arms. "So what? You think flashing some papers means anything? Michael isn't going to let you ruin his life." Emily turned to Michael. "Are you?" Michael opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Grace, looked at Emily, looked at the phone, the folder, the flash drive, the truth surrounding him with nowhere to go. For the first time since she met him, Emily saw a man who had run out of lies to stand on. Grace noticed it too. Her smile vanished. "Michael?" He didn't answer. Emily stepped back, letting the silence tighten like rope around them. Grace slammed her fist onto the counter. "Michael, say something!" He didn't. He just stared at Emily. "You weren't supposed to know." Emily lifted her chin. "But I do." A voice cut through the tension, the front door swinging open, footsteps entering the hallway. Linda. She stepped into the kitchen, stopping cold when she saw the scene. Papers everywhere. Michael pale. Grace fuming. Emily standing tall. "What is happening?" Linda demanded. Emily looked right at her. "Everything you tried to bury." Linda's glare sharpened. "You're making a fool of yourself, Emily. Stop before you embarrass." Emily pressed play on the flash drive's first recording. Linda's voice filled the kitchen. "She needs to go, Michael. She's ruining everything."
Linda froze. Colour drained from her face. Grace muttered, "Oh, this just got fun." Emily watched the older woman choke on her own words.
That isn't. You're taking it out of context.
Emily clicked to the next recording. Grace's voice.
Once she's out, everything falls back into place.
Linda stumbled backward, hand gripping the counter. Grace turned to her. "Well, looks like we're all exposed." Linda's breathing grew shallow, furious, panicked.
Emily, you don't understand. I understand enough to talk to the police,
Emily said. Michael jerked up. "The police?" "Yes," Emily said. "Because theft, fraud and conspiracy aren't family issues. They're crimes." Grace stepped forward, pointing at Emily with a shaking hand.
You think anyone will believe you over us?
Emily pulled the second phone from her bag and held it up. "They already will." Grace's eyes widened. Real fear bloomed now.
Emily, don't.
Emily met her stare calmly.
I already did.
Before Grace could speak, another voice cut in, deep, steady, familiar. Daniel stepped through the doorway holding a folder and a USB drive. "The police are on their way." Michael stumbled back like he'd been struck.
Daniel, what did you do?
"What I should have done months ago," Daniel said. "I protected the only innocent person in this house." Linda gasped.
You called them! You called them here!
"Yes," Daniel said, "with Emily's permission." Emily didn't speak, but she didn't look away either. She let the truth sit between all of them like a bomb with its pin already pulled. And that was when Grace broke. Her voice rose, trembling.
Michael, say something! Tell them it was all her! Tell them she forced you!
Emily cut in.
Grace, I have every recording, every memo, every text, every signature, every word you whispered at 2 a.m.
Grace's face twisted, something wild and desperate seeping through her perfect makeup.
Michael, do something!
Michael didn't move. Something had cracked inside him. Something that wouldn't uncrack again. Michael didn't answer Grace's scream. He didn't even look at her. His eyes stayed locked on Emily, on the proof stacked in front of him, on the life he had carved out of deception now collapsing under its own weight. He looked small. He looked finished. Grace realized it too. Her voice sharpened. "Don't you dare back out now! We did this together!" Michael swallowed hard. "You led it." The words sliced through the room. Grace stepped toward him.
Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you, after everything we planned, you're going to stand there and throw me under the bus?
Michael shook his head slowly. "You promised me it would never get this far." Grace let out a bitter laugh.
And you promised me you'd never choose her.
She pointed at Emily with trembling fury.
But you did, over and over, even when you hated her, even when you wanted me.
Grace, stop.
No,
Grace snapped.
Tell the truth, for once.
She turned to Emily, eyes bright with a rage that came from somewhere deep.
He was mine, before you. He chose you because I wanted him to. I pushed him toward you.
Emily stared back, cold and steady.
Why?
Grace's lips curled into a sharp smile.
Because I wanted you to fail. I wanted you to fall apart, Emily, publicly, badly. I wanted him to see you break so I could step in and be the one who saved him, the one he should have picked from day one.
Emily didn't blink.
And you thought he'd love you for that?
Grace's laugh was hollow.
He already did. You were just the placeholder, the test dummy. But you lasted too long. You made him soft. and his weakness made everything harder.
Daniel shifted forward. Grace, that's enough. Grace rolled her eyes.
You think she deserves the truth? She doesn't even deserve the man she married, and she certainly doesn't deserve the life she stole.
Emily stepped around the island, moving closer to them both.
I didn't steal anything. You gave it to me, and you expected me to ruin it.
Grace's jaw clenched.
You did, eventually.
Emily held her gaze.
Not the way you wanted.
For the first time, Grace's confidence cracked. Her breath stuttered. Her eyes darted around the room, not in anger now, but in fear. Sirens wailed outside. Michael's face drained. No, not yet. They can't be here yet. Daniel stepped beside Emily. I told them everything. Linda let out a broken cry.
You ruined this family!
Emily didn't even look at her.
You ruined it yourselves.
Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Moments later, loud knocks shook the front door. Police! Open the door! Grace panicked. She grabbed her purse, spun toward the back door, and bolted. Emily didn't move.
There's nowhere to go!
Grace ignored her, racing toward the kitchen exit, until one officer stepped into view outside the glass, flashlight up, blocking her escape. She froze. Another knock. Open the door, now! Daniel answered. Two officers entered, assessing the scene quickly. Papers, recordings, faces twisted with guilt. One officer stepped toward Michael. Michael Carter! Michael closed his eyes. Yes. You're under arrest for corporate fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Grace's breath caught, sharp and terrified.
Wait! He didn't act alone! It wasn't all him!
Another officer approached her. Grace Bennett.
Grace stumbled backward.
I was manipulated. I didn't know everything. Michael tricked me.
Emily clicked a button on the second phone. Grace's recorded voice filled the room. Make her think she's imagining things. You're good at that. Grace froze, mouth still open, lie half-formed. The officer nodded. You are also under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, evidence tampering, and criminal harassment. Grace shook her head violently. No, you can't arrest me. I'm the victim here. Emily looked at her calmly. You're the mastermind.
No, Grace screamed. Emily, you don't get it. You were never the wife he wanted. You were the wife I chose for him.
Everything stopped. Even the officers paused. Grace's voice cracked with a twisted pride. I picked you. I picked you because you were soft, you were breakable. I wanted to watch you crumble so I could put him back together, so he'd see I was the only one who truly understood him.
Emily stared at her sister, this stranger she had loved her entire life.
You didn't break me.
Grace let out one final broken cry as the officers cuffed her wrists. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. But it was. Michael was cuffed next, quiet, defeated, head lowered. Linda collapsed into a chair, sobbing, her perfect world shattered. Daniel stayed beside Emily through all of it. Officers gathered evidence, papers were photographed, statements taken, lives dismantled. When the door finally closed behind the police cars, the house fell silent. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, it was clean. Daniel touched her shoulder gently. You did it. Emily nodded. For the first time in months, her breath didn't hurt. Thank you, she said softly. He shook his head. You saved yourself. I only handed you the flashlight.
Emily smiled a little at that.
She spent the next weeks rebuilding her finances, her peace, her sense of self. Lawyers untangled the debts. Investigators confirmed her innocence. The community rallied behind her once the truth came out. Grace and Michael were charged together, their perfect lies shattered. Linda vanished from public life, unable to bear the humiliation. Daniel stayed close through it all, helping when she let him, stepping back when she needed space. He became a quiet, steady presence, something she had almost forgotten was possible. Months later, Emily returned to her home for good. Her home. Her life. Hers again. She woke one night and glanced at the clock. 2 a.m. The hour that once terrified her. She walked to the kitchen slowly, barefoot, letting the silence wrap around her like a gentle promise instead of a threat. The light flicked on with a soft click. No whispers, no secrets, no betrayal hiding in the shadows. Just peace. Emily stood in the quiet, breathed deeply, and let the weight of the past settle behind her where it belonged. A small smile touched her lips.
The dark never owned me,
She whispered.
I just needed to turn on the light.